Okay, we have ACC, catch wrestling, no-gi catch. Well, catch is no-gi by its very nature. Then we have a sort of a question: is no-gi more natural than gi? No and yes. It's a sort of a kind of paradox. So if I could just stand up and get a better angle on this. Right, so it is sort of both cat kind of in catch wrestling, CACC, or no-gi catch, as I like to call it, it is more well, no-gi in general, say, can be more natural, depending on it. It appears to be more natural because you don't have to do kumi kata, whether that be BJJ or Ludo or Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, okay, or Aikijutsu. The kumi kata and the grips, again, because of specialization and rule set, that will make it less realistic. And so yes, it's not really so-called quote-unquote realistic. It's not as realistic to do 90% grip work and be fighting for these kind of grip works, because that won't really be there. You know, a thick sort of double weave or a pearl weave fighting jacket won't really be there. So but it seems to be more natural to, say, have the hands. Some systems don't like this, but it is a historically in no-gi wrestling, this is a move that you kind of can link the hands like that, right? Then you can sort of maybe do here a wrist lock, okay, or a finger lock or a joint lock, yeah. So it's quite a good way, this sort of interlinking, and again you see it in historical no-gi wrestling and folk style. It is quite a good way of getting control and on also keeping hold, because there's no, if it's no-gi wrestling, there's no jacket, so it's quite a good way of getting a hold or a strong purchase on the grip. Yeah, and you will see this in historical examples. So that was quite a common kind of thing in a no-gi situation, yeah. In certain systems and subsystems of no-gi wrestling throughout different places, throughout different nationalities, not just limited to one area. So again, this could be quite common. Some complain about the fingers being, you know, in a bad position or dangerous or whatever, but it makes no sense, because if you're doing a throw is a strike, and so it's not safe anyway. So or what's the word? It's not. I don't know. It's a throw is what it is, so you can break full, but it's not. You know, it is a type of a strike, so it doesn't make sense to allow a throw, which is an impact force, a strike, but then not allow these kind of grips. So it seems a bit hypocritical and self-defeating. But anyway, so that's a common grip. Another one, less strong, is wrist control and reverse wrist control, and then this one seems to be less used, but can be used. And yeah, it can be used for Sodi Goshi sleeve hit throw. You can use both. You can use normal and reverse wrist control. You can also use it here on the outside like a block. So if the hand's coming in, you can catch, push it over, and then get like a Russian 2-on-1. Yeah, which is again a very safe position, right? Very secure position because you're in an outside fighter kind of position. So that power fighter cannot get linear on you, which is the worst thing that can happen with a power fighter. If you're on the receiving end, is that linear force. So a Russian 2-on-1 is a very good way. And as I say, if you do like a web thumb catch on there, as that's there, then you can kind of block that and then hug it, wrap it up, and then do certain things. A kick kind of style sweep, a bit like Irish collar and elbow, would be good as well. Like a sweep, but like a hybrid between a sweep and a kick, because you can wear the person down rather than going for one big move, which is hard against a power style opponent. So little wear downs and small repeated shots are very good for that type, more smaller or technical style. Yeah, lots of little shots rather than one big, huge, high density movement, which will be difficult if you don't have the power. So, yeah, that's just certain no-gi movements can be more natural than gi, but then there's personality. Some people's personality, or mindset, or just they gravitate, they take a favour to the gi and they say I can't do no-gi. So you get both people. You get people who don't like no-gi, you get people who don't like the jacket. Maybe because of mental blocks, because they tell themselves they can't do it. I'm not quite sure. But the hug, the no-gi hug, it doesn't have to be like a belly to belly. But it is a kind of natural thing, especially I would say this gable grip and the butterfly one. When you get that, the pecs and the upper body, and you crunch like round the back a bit, like when you round the back in Wing Chun, when you round the back and you get that no-gi hug, very strong, but it's also quite a natural sort of common sense movement. So I would say that it's much more sort of natural and common sense than it would be to, in my view, than it would be to do kumi kata. And I'm someone who's done, judo, so I'm not having a go at it, but it seems, again, much more artificial and much more designed for a specialised environment, not as realistic to do all this jacket kumi kata, because again it's a very specialised approach. It's a very specialised approach that as I say, requires a very thick sort of gi, and it's not going to be available everywhere, And then also these trades with this grip kind of thing, these kumi kata kind of trades are a very specialist sort of same weight class one-on-one, very specialised environment, very rigid environment. So it's good at what it does, but probably not outside of itself. So the other problem with the gi is once someone's got hold, if a power fighter's got hold, then it's sunk in, and then you kind of are doomed. Whereas with no gi, you can strip off. So if it's wrist control, you can here like a tanzo, or whatever the Western version is, right? You can do wrestling strips, and you can strip the grip off more because it'll slide, right? Again, you can't do that with a gi kumi kata, because once it's locked in, it's pretty much locked in and it's solid. So again, as I usually say, in general, I would say that no-gi grips are more natural, but there are individual factors that are very, very important too, that come into play. So there will be multiple individuals that will prefer gi and will dislike no-gi and feel like it's unnatural or squeamy or it feels weird, right? And vice versa. So for me, I think the gi feels that way, actually feels quite bizarre and quite in the way, but also, yeah, just not natural. And again, there's fighters on the other end of the scale who the jacket feels natural, the grappling jacket, and then no-gi feels bizarre, and that's fair enough. But I think, as I say, a kind of a no-gi hug or a clinch is quite a natural common sense movement, whereas fighting for kumikata is too over the top, it's too OTT, really. And then also, as I say, once that's grip sunk in, then the power fight kind of has the advantage, which they do in a lot of systems. But as I say, the no-gi just gives you more options to strip and block. So yeah, it can be more natural to do no-gi style grips, and gable and butterfly are very powerful but very instinctive, and that's the other thing, is that apart from maybe a Korean grip, what they call Korean judo grip, where it's like a double collar and you can pull down and control them that way. Apart from maybe that, and maybe sleeve lapel in some instances, it's very unnatural. It's not really natural to, yeah. And as I say, the person with this that can get that grip will win, and that's usually the power fighters. So it's, and there's so much, you know, because 80% of the stand up is grip work, 80 to 90%. So it's like no-gi, that's taken a lot of that away, and also it's taken the power fighters' control away because they can't lock in there, you see. So now you can hold them off, you can frame off. You know, if you've got here lapel, you can frame like a forearm frame or a hack. You can frame and kind of block that way, but it's very limited. So yeah, it's very it's not as natural, and it's not instinctive. It's not instinctive to think about all these steps, you know, here and then break off and then here and then, you know, it's not. Whereas, as I say, a no-gi hook's completely instinctive. A white belt could do it without having any lesson or having barely any time on the mat. That white belt could totally, in general, just get like a no-gi hug or a clinch or even a wrist control, or as I say, these things like a schoolyard kind of grappling kind of thing, you know. So these are very more instinctive and more natural. And in general, yes, there are exceptions on all sides, but generally speaking, it seems to be more instinctive, more common sense, and more natural, which I think, especially freestyle, the subsystem freestyle within Western wrestling is more realistic and more, again, that common sense approach. Greco-Roman seems to be more similar to judo in that sense of like rewarding the power style, which will always happen in every system. It will always happen, but it just gives like an extra reward and bias towards that. So I think also with the Nogi grips, you can actually feel more. You can feel the person more because, say, if they wear a rash guard or a Nogi t-shirt, you know, they you can feel their movement and what they're going to do more. Whereas with a jacket, because it's detached, it's a bit delayed, so it's a bit the cognition might take longer to realise, you know, because of the lag. Whereas I say without it, you can actually feel like chi sao and like push hands in Tai Chi Chuan. You can feel the movement. With Nogi, you can feel where the person's going. I don't know. Definitely think I prefer that. And again, there are some things you can do to defend. Another one, but the rule set's so artificial, is in the gate, you can do a whizzer and then grab your own uniform or the opponent's, but you can do that and that will lock down their arm, but then it's quite difficult to throw with it because you get told off. There's so many artificial rules that punish the technique fighter and reward the power fighter that it's really strayed from its roots in a very sad direction, in my opinion. But that doesn't really matter, I suppose, because it's not the discussion for today. So, yeah, that's really just starting off the vlog, saying that, generally speaking, no-gi gripping methods are more instinctive and more natural and common sense. On the ground, it's different in Iwaza and BJJ. It's different because the speed is much slower, so you have more time to think and react. So, like, if someone grabs the jacket, you can, because the being low to the ground and wide postured, it dampens down the speed, so it gives the small person more of a chance, but it also gives your brain a chance to think about, you know, the grips. So yeah, I think that's just it really on those, on catch wrestling and HEMA, because there's a link there, because catch wrestling is a historical system, you know. It definitely, I think HEMA people or WMA people could definitely practice it and say they were doing unarmed HEMA, and then you could link in the rondel dagger or a medieval knife defense and the bow and wear machete style blade, you know. You could link in what you call semi-unarmed, another word invention, semi-unarmed, one between two, so they might have a weapon. This is where grappling comes from, east and west. Is you might they have a, you know, whatever it is, and then you might have two grips on one arm, you know, and then you want to separate that other hand. So that's where the unarmed grappling comes from in Eastern systems and Western WMA. So there are things you can do, as I say, with jackets, but the danger for the smaller fighter is that when their grip is on, especially if they're an arm fighter or a hand fighter, their grip is on, that's very dangerous, whereas that's not going to happen as much. No-gi still will happen, but won't happen as much. So it gives more safer options. So yeah, catch wrestling is catch wrestling unarmed HEMA? Yes, in my view, yes, it is, because they might not call themselves that, but it definitely is. Or at the very least, it's H-WMA, unarmed historical Western, you know, because it's got goes back to like the 1400s, late 1400s, I understand. So from boats going from west to east to trade. So it's got a hybrid of Western and Eastern techniques, but it's definitely a borderline unarmed HEMA system, definitely it is. I would say, again, people don't like to call it that. People don't want to call it that, which is fair enough. But it's as I say, it certainly fits that description. So it'd be very good for anyone looking for unarmed HEMA, catch wrestling, and maybe freestyle, and to a lesser degree Greco-Roman, because of the very artificial rule set. It's a bit removed from historical wrestling and historical self-defense, So yeah, the way to mix in different systems would be find a link and then use that and apply it to different things. So a link between another link between, say, Western modern wrestling and HEMA would be semi-unarmed, as I say, like a rondel dagger or a medieval synthetic knife, for sparring, and one between two, and you grapple over it, and that shows you where. And in Kenjutsu, it can be done with a samurai dagger, a tanto, the same thing in samurai armor as Western armor. One between two, one knife or dagger between two, and then you grapple over it, and that's where wrestling kind of comes from, and grappling comes from, in humans, regardless, East and West. So that would be a way to link HEMA with Western wrestling or modern wrestling, would be to throw in the synthetic dagger with no-gi takedowns, and in a semi-controlled environment, and then yeah, it would be you would have both. You would have like a modern system and a traditional system, or a historical art. So you kind of have both because you're mixing them in. So the best of both worlds in a way. And it already is happening a bit with like Gracie, BJJ. Some schools do like dagger defense or whatever. So that there is, but that's like modern stuff. The HEMA stuff. Obviously, there's the manuals and there's the respect for tradition, which is very important, which modern martial arts absolutely has lost to its detriment. So yeah, you can link in the historical and the modern wrestling with, if you have a synthetic dagger in sparring, then you can do the, shows you where the grappling 2-on-1, then the double grip, two hands on the wrist, and Aikido throw, what's it called, Shiho Nagi, things like that, and Western versions as well. It just shows you where the grappling and the wrestling comes from. It comes from one between two, whether it's a short sword or a dagger or a knife or a tanto or a rondel blade, dagger, rondel style. It just shows you where that comes from. And then in Kali, in Filipino, you have what you call blade translation. So it's the same, but with striking, So you might have a knife, ice pick grip, reverse grip, and then to simulate that, cut unarmed translation would be elbow strike, or an elbow swipe, and then to simulate like a backhand stab, be a forearm or a faksao, or a chop, hand chop. So you can be simulating the blades, with striking, and they're called translations, blade translations. So it's the same with grappling. It can be done with a punch or an uppercut. So you could do that and then go into like a wrist lock or an armbar, or circle blocks, into 2-on-1s and different things. So this is how the mindset is how you link the historical and the modern system is the mindset. As I say, you might do a modern Nogi takedown with a historical synthetic dagger, and that way you've blended HEMA with modern wrestling, modern Western wrestling. So yeah, you can, as long as you have a mindset of like finding one common link, e.g. semi-unarmed, or between two, you find a kind of a link. So the link would be that one person will be unarmed, and in modern Western wrestling, it's an unarmed system. So that's the link. The link is the unarmed component. And then the HEMA component will be that there's semi-unarmed, that there's one between two, and it's a dagger. So you always find a link. If I've done videos on the Spider-Man about links, but you just find a linking factor, and then you can do both systems. The other one is just a recap. So yeah, there's here, even double under or single under. So a shallow underhook will be on the near side, and you clip Nogi monkey grip under here, and then a far one I can't really show, but you'd go across underneath the person, but on the far shoulder and clip on that and then go in. Or you can arm triangle, really good because it's so powerful. Yeah. Again, some artificial rule set are frowned upon, but it gives smaller people a technique. Fighters are much fairer rule set to go by. So you can again do that elbow here on the bone there. You can block it and then go up arm triangle and then go in that way. So, and when that arm triangle, kata gatami kind of standing, when the arm triangle's locked in, even Nogi, it's immensely powerful and you've got your head, the wrestling head fighting, which is very much missing in judo. You put that forehead on their temple and grind the pressure there, then lock down that Nogi grip, and then it's really strong. So there's various tricks and tips and things to balance out the inequality between the technique fighter and the power fighter. Yeah, and yeah, this it was going to be about other things like bayonets and cultural things, but catch wrestling is fine, as I say, because it's a type of unarmed HEMA, really, to be honest. And no one talks about, I noticed this is why I titled the video, no one's ever talked about Nogi HEMA. I suppose because my brain's very good at noticing hidden gems and gaps in things with the right brain creativity, so I can really notice. So, but no one really in the WMA symposium, whatever it's called, seems to notice this or comment on it about Nogi HEMA. But so I'll be the first one then. Yeah, and the historical jackets too. So it's gi wrestling and Nogi, like Irish collar and elbow or Cornish wrestling. But there's tons of examples of Nogi. The Nogi is more to do with self-defense, obviously, because someone isn't wearing like a double weave grappling jacket that's rip resistant. They're not especially wearing that. So if you just grab a t-shirt, it will. So unless you really bunch it up like BJJ's self-defense videos, there are special methods for doing that. But again, it's more of an outlier. In general, you can't just off the bat grab, an everyday t-shirt with a gi style grip because it will rip. So again, the specialized methods require a lot of time and a lot of thought. So a Nogi grip again is very reliable in that you can just go to it, and then hug in, and then it's, it won't rip a t-shirt or whatever because it's not relying on that. So yeah, Nogi HEMA, Just again, basic sort of white belt kind of stuff, just fundamentals and basics of like, you know, it might be a belly to belly and a hug, or a high underhook and hug and head in. It's, at least for me, and I don't think I'm the only one, it seems to be quite a common sense, instinctive movement that's very universal, at least to a lot of students, right? So it can be like, again, a low belly to belly or a high double unders, but it's this kind of thing, or this tie plug collar, again, double nogi grip here on the neck. Again, once you've got that in there or in here, asymmetrical or centered, it doesn't really matter. It's really powerful. It's really powerful. You can just sort of hold them there, wear them down, do your sweeps, kick sweeps, and it's really powerful, you see. So it really dampens the, especially if you hold them there, you know, and you wear them down, it dampens that power fighter's advantage, you know, because the longer, the more cardio, the more cardio and endurance approach can be applied to that. That's gonna, because they're very good at the early rounds, the high density kind of stuff, but the sort of wear downs and the low density and the long time drag will sort of even out that imbalance a bit more. So yeah, you've got the tie, you've got single collar from Western wrestling, which this can frame and block. You've got what do they call it? A front headlock, I believe, from my external observations, having never done it. A front headlock is a sort of like a bit of a guillotine, but not a strangle, just a grip. It's a grip, not so much a submission. But I think a front headlock is like that, where you looks a bit like a guillotine, and then you can hold them. But anything, again, Russian 2-on-1, anything where you can take their direct force away from them is a very good idea. Yeah, and yeah, instinctive stuff. So perhaps people that find gi more instinctive are people that have very strong hand or arm, or maybe just a psychological preference for the jacket, you know. There can be multiple reasons, and there are fighters like that, as I say, who like the jacket and dislike the nogi, and I would be the other way around. But again, both exist and both have their own valid approaches, which is fine. But I would still say, in general, yeah, it's more natural, and it's sort of, again, because you can feel things. It's not disconnected with a gap. You can actually feel things more, and you can kind of, I would say, feel with a, say, a shallow or a far underhook. You can actually kind of almost feel where it's meant to be instinctively. You know, you don't have to be like with kumikata, you have to be taught in detail. You know, this one, and then pull, and then this, and then it's like thousands and thousands of decimal places, yeah. Whereas with nogi, it's more, again, because you can actually feel the rash guard or the nogi t-shirt. You can feel the direct contact, so your body kind of knows on autopilot where to go, almost, without having to be told every single detail. So if it's like a shallow underhook, you'll kind of understand you can clip on, you know, or put your palm on the mat. Or if it's a far one, again, you'll understand you can clip on here, or you might feel like grabbing your own hand and doing a hip throw, an ogoshi, you know. But it's much more self-explanatory, you see. You don't need all these big, like with kumikata, all these big thousands of decimal places, which, for my view, for my way of doing things, is a hindrance, I think. I suppose you could say it's good to do the complex way first and the easy way second, because you'll find it very simple. Whereas if you do the easy way first and the hard way second, then it's going to be immensely, almost impossible. So there's an advantage to that. And that is actually the advantage to also the turn. As much as it's putting yourself in a very bad position, it's a very bad mentality, but the actual advantage of it is that in doing in some ways a bit similar to taekwondo, in doing something difficult that actually puts you at a disadvantage, overcoming that disadvantage makes it makes the fighting mentality very, very resilient. Whereas if you just went straight for a single leg and drive down, then it's effective, but you're not overcoming that difficulty. So in turning and actually deliberately putting yourself in a very bad position, which it is, it's not a self-defense mentality. If someone grabs you from the back, then yes, but if you actually give it up, that's a very terrible giving up your back in order to do Nogi. Is not a very good idea from a self-defense perspective, but obviously from a sports combat, that's a different perspective. But there is value in overcoming that difficulty. Sambo also does this to a degree, although judo does it a lot. As I say, the value in the turn, because having talked about the disadvantages of, you're giving up your back and you're actually in a very bad position and giving balance, and it's all true, and it's a very anti-self-defense, like counterintuitive kind of approach. It's very bizarre, but the actual advantage to that is that it's like someone saying, do you want the bad news or the good news first? If you choose the difficult one first, then you've got the good one to look forward to, kind of thing. So in a very bizarre way, the essence of judo, i.e. the turn, right? In the same way the essence of Western fencing is the straight lunge, or Kumite is the Gyaku Suki. The advantage to this turn is that you're actually overcoming an extremely difficult and almost self-defeating technique. And in overcoming that, it can make the fighting spirit very resilient. It's very counterintuitive, but there's a sort of power in it. There's a very powerful method to it, which is very noteworthy. So yeah, so let's just show on here. So seeing Nogi, as I say, drops feel more safe, obviously, because you're down. But again, because 90% of it stand up and a tiny fraction is ground, then you don't have to worry about ground. But in a more BJJ, and you're going to be giving up that, and you're going to be risking yourself to shimiwas or chokes and strangles. So it's just not the most self-defense mentality. If you happen to be there already and you're grabbed as a counter throw, it's good, but as an attack throw, it's not. But as I say, in terms of overcoming that difficulty, I think that's the goal. The goal is more the mindset and the physical action of overcoming this extreme disadvantage can make you stronger. And it sounds very strange. It's almost like a type of stoicism, I think. In overcoming that very disadvantageous technique, you are more powerful than you would be if you just did the easy move all the time. That will work, but when you do the easy route all the time, you don't always learn anything, because you just might be like being very wealthy. You just can do the simple approach every time. You'll never grow and learn. So I think the big advantage of judo, as much as I have struggled with stand-up and disliked it intensely, is that you sort of grow and become more powerful through this immense difficulty of actually the essence of judo, of the turn, whichever type of turn it is, left and right, is its power is in its sort of stoicism and its overcoming of that difficulty. So that's just a bit, to be fair, on the stand-up side of judo, because I know I have a go at it a lot, but that is the advantage, I think, to it, in terms of mentality and in terms of the fighting approach, the methodology and the mentality. Is this sort of stoic kind of feel. So that's maybe giving it a bit more, as I say, of a fair hearing, although it will always advantage the power stylist more, unless you drop. If you drop, then because you've lowered yourself to a safety position where if they pull you down, you're not going to get a big height drop of fall. So you've taken height out of the equation, so you're much safer with the drops here than a standing CO Nogi. But yeah, and also going direct, I think, is again this sort of giving the power stylist the big advantage is by going direct. So again, dropping can take that directness, that linearness out of it, because it adds like a third dimension almost. So instead of just one dimensional, you add an extra dimension by involving height. So a standing Sanagi would just be there, but a drop would involve an extra dimension into the equation, and therefore can help, because the person has to think around it then. So element of surprise and confusion, very powerful, inspiring. So yeah, that's just about that end bit isn't really Nogi HEMA, it's just about judo, really, Japanese judo. But yeah, I think that's it. Just find the link between the system, whatever system you want to do, and then focus on the link, as I say. So it might be that if it's semi-unarmed with a synthetic dagger, HEMA dagger, then the link might be that one person's unarmed and that modern Western wrestling is unarmed. So you always find the link, and then with the HEMA link, it's that it's got a Rondel dagger or synthetic dagger. So and it's historic wrestling. So you always just find one link. If it's boxing and taekwondo, it's got punches in. If it's karate and TKD, it's got kicks in. You just find a common, even say Jutsu and Aikido, it's got wrist locks in, so you just find one category or classification that both have, and then you can practice both systems in harmony. So that's all, I suppose, as I say. So I'd like to just be what's the word? The first person here to talk about Nogi HEMA, which no one else has, and then I'll also talk about maybe not, but it seems to be flag spears and bayonets aren't really talked about. So again, I could be the first to, what would they say, set a, not a milestone, I don't know, the benchmark, whatever they say, and something like that. Like again, an inventor, which I would be, so yeah, flag spears, bayonets, and Dark Age armor. Be the first person to talk about certain topics within those that haven't really been talked about before. So again, I'd be the inventor of the type of vlog on those issues, you know, in a sense. So yeah.